Well, it's always good to be in the house of the Lord, but I have a special place in my heart for Calvary Chapel. So I come from the Calvary Chapels over in Austin, and last time I actually visited you guys, you were still in the chapel, and y'all were doing what we call in Austin the Calvary Crunch. Everybody move in. We need more room. So this is awesome to see. It's really cool. So I am actually from the Institute for Creation Research, and I hope that you guys can tell me this. How many of you have been to our Discovery Center? A few of you. Well, I know at least one of you have, because in the Lost and Found, there's an ICR cup. So one of you, if you raise your hand now, I'll give you a free book. No? Okay, all right, just checking. All right. So I'm with the Institute for Creation Research. If you don't know what that is, we actually, about 50 years ago, give or take, Henry Morris and Dwayne Gish got together and created a ministry so that we could give good science-based answers to the questions that people were getting about origins. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 50 years, is employing PhD scientists to do research that shows that science confirms the Bible. Now, there's a few things we want to do in our mission statement. We want to worship the Lord and, first of all, Jesus. We want to edify the body, and we want to help you and for us to evangelize, to tell others about Christ. I say we want to glorify Jesus because in Colossians 1:16 and 17 it says, "For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things consist." You see, we believe that Jesus is our creator, he's our savior, and he's our coming king. But there's something important when I say that, because if he's not your savior, he can't be your coming king. And that's something that we need to talk more about. So we like to come to churches and give you the research so that you can have good science-based answers. Now, we've led the way in creation science. We're now doing it for the second time. The first time was with Henry Morris. He actually led the way with flood geology, saying, hey, when you look at the rock layers around you, you're actually seeing the evidence of the global flood in Genesis. It changed everybody. It changed everybody's mind, because all of the creation speakers that I have ever met, every single one of them attribute Henry Morris's book to them becoming a creationist. So he led the way in that. We're doing that again right now with a biological engineering theory of animals and humans. Because you think about it, God is the ultimate engineer. And if you're anybody engineers in the crowd today, a couple of you seemed a little timid. I don't know if that was, okay, that's fine. Engineers are amazing. They have amazing minds, okay? But here's the thing. The same principles and guidelines that you're using in engineering are the same principles and guidelines we're finding in animals. How God designed animals. And that is an amazing thing, because where does that put us? It takes us away from the evolutionary concept of random mutations and natural selection. Because for the longest time, all we could do is say, look, the beak changed on Darwin's finches. That's all we knew. And then what did Darwin say? Well, the answer is definitely not going to be God. So he said, it's got to be some kind of random thing. So he said, oh, it's a random mutation. It's a copying error. That's all it is. Well, then we started mapping the genome. We started mapping DNA. And we started to see within the DNA that sometimes there was a change. You said, oh, okay, well, that changed. A lot of times, nothing changed at all. Features were turning on and off, but nothing was changing in the DNA. We are now to another level of understanding of DNA. Not only do we know that there was a change, we know this changed, but we know why it changed. And when we started to realize why it changed, this has brought us a new understanding of the design of God. Because study after study after study is showing us that all these feature changes with animal adaptation are not at the DNA level. There's nothing changing the DNA. It's actually happening above that. They call it the epigenetic level, above the genes, the epigenetic level. And when those things happen, we found that animals have sensors. They're sensing their environment always. They're constantly sensing their environment. And then when they sense a change in their environment, there's logic built into them. They know that if this happens, they need to do that. And then they have systems in them to make targeted and rapid changes. Isn't that amazing? God designed them from the very beginning to be able to adapt to their environments. And so no longer when we see an adaptation do we need to say, oh, well, there must be some kind of random mutation or something like that. We'll have to check that out. Now we can say, give glory to God because he designed them that way, and we can still have fun. We can still go in and see what mechanism God built in, the mechanism that he designed to allow them to adapt to their environment. And we're leading the way in that. Not all the ministries are like this, but we're finding it study after study after study. Even conventional scientists who don't believe in God are finding the same thing. They just don't want to attribute it to the one ultimate designer. But we're leading the way in that, and we're excited about that. Of course, we don't just do biology. We don't just do geology. We do astronomy too. And that's what we're here today for. We want to talk about the total solar eclipse that's coming up on April 8th. I actually entitled this talk, To Live and to Explore, because God has given us a world, a home, that we will never get tired of exploring. He gave us something that we can live in and something we can explore. I got to tell you, when I was a kid, I'm a sci-fi fan now. Any sci-fi fans here? All right, we got some in the orchestra pit. Yes. All right, I love science fiction, okay? And when I was a kid, I used to watch Star Trek. All right, how many of you think I watched the original Star Trek? Y'all are sinners, okay? I watched Star Trek Next Generation, okay? There's a little bit of gray here. Let's calm down, all right? So I watched Star Trek Next Generation, and I loved imagining the day that we would get doors that could just go psh, psh, open and close like that. I wanted to be able to say Earl Grey hot and have a cup of tea, even though I didn't really like tea at the time. But I wanted to be able to say that, right? And the best thing is that in Star Trek Next Generation, they used to walk around with all these little pads right here. You see those? I was like, they always had these little pads they were typing on them. And I was like, I can't wait till we get that. When Apple came out with the iPad, I giggled like a little girl, okay? I had to have one. I've had 4 of them so far because I wanted to live in Star Trek my entire life. That was awesome to me. And so I have always loved space and astronomy and things like that. But we're not here to find out what Dave says about space and the celestial bodies. We're here to find out what God says about those things and how we can glorify him because of it. So if we go to the Bible, we go to Genesis 1:14 through 16, it says, Then God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. So that's the creation week. God actually gave us the sun and the moon. Now, he says over here something interesting. He says, God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. That's my favorite part of the entire Bible. Okay, except for the Jesus part. Okay, but for the other parts of it, that's my favorite part of the Bible. Because he says, he made the stars also. Do you realize that scientists, astronomers have been trying to figure out how you can create one star? They have no evidential theory that can come up with one star. There's like 20 theories, but they all start out with a star blowing up and then creating more stars. Well, where did you get the first star? It's like God saying, no, get your own star if you want to create more. All right? And so we have no idea how to create a star. And God says, oh yeah, by the way, I made all those too. That's how great God is. That's how powerful God is. And it is my hope and desire that you walk away knowing that. So if we take a look at Psalm 19, 1 through 3, it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language that their voice is not heard." This is the coolest thing because it's telling us that his creation is going to speak to us in the day, and his creation is going to teach us knowledge at night. And here's the best part. It says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. It doesn't matter what language you speak. If I go to Spain today, I'm in trouble. If I go to Germany today, I'm in trouble. But God says his creation speaks no matter what language you speak. You are going to know him. You are going to know his majesty. It doesn't require language. And I think that's what we'll see. The thing that I love about this is that it says, "And the firmament shows his handiwork." In other words, his handiwork is amazing. It's beautiful. And that's something that I've always wondered about. Why is there beauty if evolution is true? The most famous, or what I like to say, the most infamous atheist or evolutionist is Richard Dawkins. He says evolution is blind, pitiless indifference. There is no design, there is no intention, there is no need for anything. It's blind, pitiless indifference. It's random. If evolution is blind, pitiless indifference, then why is there beauty? And and I'll say this, you may be thinking right now, yeah, but I don't always agree with my wife or my husband or whoever on what is beautiful. Well, we may be putting beauty in different buckets, but why do we have the buckets? Why do we see beauty? Why is there aesthetics? You think about it. On earth, we look at the most amazing pictures. We go out into fields and see, this is heather over in Scotland. And if you look at the coastlines, you see the water and the rocks that have been carved out with the water. You look at lakes and mountains and forests. They're all beautiful. Do you realize that God is the original artist? He is the author of beauty. God is the author of beauty. Do you realize every artist is simply reproducing something that God's already done? Have you ever thought of that? No matter whether it's the colors, the patterns, the person, the scenery, God is the author of beauty, and we just reproduce the amazing works that he has already done. He is the author. I tell you what, I went up to the Black Hills in South Dakota, and I was checking out some sites for a conference, and the day before I was supposed to go, a blizzard came in, and there was a layer of snow as we drove around. I was scared to death because I'm from Texas. We don't have snow and ice. Well, we did the one week, but we just all stayed home, right? But there was a layer of snow that it was just this beautiful blanket of white on everything. It was absolutely amazing. God is just crazy artistic and creative, isn't he? It's awesome. It's not even just scenery. What about the gems and the minerals? Man, you think about it, all these rocks that I have. This is just a few that I have. And I got to tell you, does anybody go to gem and mineral shows, rocks and gem? So you can agree, I'm not lying. This is like maybe a tenth of what's out there. God has given us so much diversity and so much beauty. You think about some of these colors that just pop out like this. Geodes and crystals like this. They're amazing. This is pyrite. It comes in multiple different shapes and sizes. You can get a disc. You can get these perfect cubes. All this stuff is amazing. We're going to have it out in the lobby so you can kind of check it out. God has given us so much beauty. It's amazing. Even the rocks. Now, I heard that the youth were in here. Is the youth in here? Oh, there's a few back there. Okay, so I'm going to give you a challenge. All right, if you can tell me, no, not me. If you can tell Benjamin out at the table where I say Avengers was filmed. Where I say Avengers was filmed. I have a bag of small pieces of hadrosaur bone. So I have a big ilium of hadrosaur. It's about that long, about that big. And I got some pieces from it. I will give you the first 3 people to tell Benjamin where I say Avengers film, I'll give you a piece of hadrosaur bone. Okay, no adults. I saw some of you were thinking about it, but you have to be youth. So there's all kinds of rocks. Think about this. This is from the Great Unconformity over in Colorado. So if you drive down into this falls area, there's this huge uplift. And an uplift is just where rock has gone, whoop, okay? And it uplifts like this. And in that uplift, you have two different kinds of rock right here. You have this granite kind of rock, and then there is just this flat shelf of sedimentary rock. In other words, it's a layer of sediment, rock, silt, dirt, limestone, all this kind of stuff that's just laid on top. If you were to date them by radiometric dating, there's going to be a huge gap. We see that in the Grand Canyon all the time. The unconformities, there's a huge gap in the dating, 100 million years difference. Evolutionists can't figure it out. Creationists are like, it was laid down in the same day, basically, okay? So here's the thing. This is a great unconformity. This is the rock. This is the base rock. This is the first sedimentary layer that was laid down ever. What am I talking about right now? First layer of sediment brought in by a massive amount of water that was laid down. What am I talking about? The global flood. So what you're looking at is very likely. In science, you can't say emphatically things. You have to say the evidence points to, likely. You're looking at creation week rock and the first layer of the global flood. Is that cool? Is God amazing? I love that. And so when I was in Scotland, I was at Sicker Point. The evolutionists love Sicker Point, so we went over there and checked it out. I went on a tour, and I spoke in Scotland and England. And so I picked up this rock because it has the two different types of rock that are laid down there. And so it's really cool. And I was doing a talk, and my point was you can't bend rock. And so I asked for this kid to come up and try and bend it. So he tries bending it, and I was like, hey, who's stronger? Who's really strong? This guy walks up and snaps it in half. You should have heard the gasps because they thought that he had just ruined my example. I was like, no, the point is you can't bend it. You can break it, but you can't bend it. Let's see here. What else is? Oh, this is cool. So this is actually a piece of the wall of Jericho. So Dr. Randall Price went over there and dug down to the burnt area of the wall and got a brick, and this is a piece of that brick that he got. There's just all kinds of different rocks, though. Even rocks have different textures and colors and all kinds of cool stuff. This is amazing. There's just beauty everywhere, and we haven't even gotten to space yet. I'm supposed to be talking about space, for heaven's sakes. If we go out into space, we can take a look at the Andromeda Galaxy. That's our closest galaxy next to us. It's kind of our neighbor, shall we say. Okay, we're the Milky Way galaxy. That's the Andromeda Galaxy. Now, we take these pictures. They're composite photos. So we take lots of pictures, and then we put them together in these composite photos. That's Andromeda. When we turned the camera into our galaxy, we turned it into the center, and this is what we saw. Billions and billions of stars. It is so beautiful. And a lot of those blue stars, we call those blue gas giants, great evidence of a young universe. Okay? Now, you think about it, though. Here's one, the Sombrero Galaxy. I guess they thought it looked like a sombrero. I don't think I can wear that one, okay? But it is beautiful. It is really cool. And as a matter of fact, when we look out into space, God is so amazing. He puts beauty upon beauty upon beauty. There's always levels to God. There's always these levels. When we look at the same thing, this is the same gas cloud, but it's using different wavelengths. So same electromagnetic spectrum, but you can look at it in radio waves, microwaves, infrared radiation, ultraviolet rays, X-rays, gamma rays. And when you look at them through the different wavelengths, you actually see it differently. God has put beauty within beauty. The same thing is true of rocks. If you take a look, there's these rocks, they actually fluoresce under ultraviolet light. You may or may not be able to see that. I tell you what, if we turn off the lights, and the Lord said, let there be no light. There we go. Hey, look at that. You would pick up this rock outside in the parking lot and throw it away. You really would. You would just look at it and go, whatever, okay. But just like you guys, the youth, the adults, everybody, God has put beauty inside of you that people don't even know about. Just like he put beauty inside these rocks. And there's several rocks up here. If you come out to my table, this is one. It looks like a green alien got to it. If you take a look at the green on there, God puts beauty in things that you never thought about. We can turn the lights back up. God has taken his design of the earth and of the universe, and in the same breath just put so much beauty that it takes our breath away. It's awesome. And so I hope that we know that going away. This is the pillars of creation. We didn't name it that. Secular scientists named it that. Why? Because this is where they think stars are formed. Okay? They've never actually seen it happen, but they really want it to be true, so they call it the pillars of creation. Hey, you know what happens when you find, when a star explodes, it's this nebula, when you find it, you get to name it. That's important when I tell you the next one. This is the Eye of Sauron. Any Lord of the Rings fans? Yeah? So this is the Eye of Sauron. He got to name it. He named it the Eye of Sauron. And it does kind of look like it. I'm not going to lie to you. But this world is beautiful. God has given us such an amazing home. But let's talk more specifically about 3 celestial bodies, because these are really important to a total solar eclipse, and they're really important to our home, to living here on earth. These 3 bodies are going to be something that's interesting. It looks like I made a typo, doesn't it? Like I just hit the keyboard. That's syzygy. So that's an actual term for 3 celestial bodies in a pretty much straight line. And within this context, it's within a solar system, so it's within a gravitational system. This syzygy is so interesting because it takes up these 3 celestial bodies, and those are exactly the ones I want to talk about. And because those are the 3 that give us a total solar eclipse. Now, we're actually going to do a big event. You have a total solar eclipse coming up on April 8th. Not that far away. Monday, April 8th. On Saturday, April 6th, we're going to do a huge event at First Baptist Church, Forney, okay? We've got several speakers. We've got Colonel Williams. He actually spent over 500 days on the International Space Station. He's actually one of our board members. We have General Charlie Duke. He's one of the last 12 people to ever have walked on the moon. If you've ever wanted to meet somebody who's walked on the moon, this is the time to do it. So there's very few of them left. But we're going to have games. We have a youth track. We have a children's track. We've got food trucks, all kinds of good stuff. And you can find out more about that on icr.org. You can sign up there. But the total solar eclipse that I'm talking about with these 3 bodies, it happens when the moon actually starts to orbit, comes around us, and it actually lines up perfectly with the sun. Now, I always like to go to NASA when we're talking about astronomy just to get a definition from them. It says this: a total solar eclipse happens when the moon completely blocks the face of the sun. It is the result of a cosmic coincidence. Even though the sun is about 400 times bigger than the moon, it is also about 400 times further away. This makes the sun and the moon appear almost exactly the same size in our sky. Just a cosmic coincidence, huh? That the sun and moon line up perfectly. The sun is exactly 400 times bigger than the moon, and then just happens to be 400 times farther away than the moon. That just happened to happen, right? Or is it that something that God did to show us his glory? Something that God did so that night unto night could give us knowledge. I think that's exactly what it is. I think you'll see that here. So the solar eclipse is where it lines up, and so you'll see here the moon is blocking the sun 400 times farther away, 400 times larger, so it blocks the sun perfectly. And so it comes across here on the earth, and it happens in different places. So it happens every year and a half or so, and it's in different places. Isn't it cool that God puts it in different places so that everybody can experience it? Everybody can know his glory. We are without excuse. Now, if you're not in perfect, what they call totality, they'll say that this is totality. Dallas is in totality, in the path of totality. That sounds really like carnage and wreckage, but it's not. It just means that it's going to block the sun perfectly, okay? But if you're not quite there, you'll still see a little bit, but you won't see the full thing. And what happens is that it goes dark. All the animals and insects think it's night. You'll start hearing them chirp, and you'll start hearing the animals move around and stuff like this. And then you hear all the humans go, whoa, that's amazing. Like it is an experience that you will not forget to have the sun blocked out. Gee, didn't that happen in the Bible another time? Interesting. But it wasn't just because of the path of the moon. So here's a quick little fact for you. There is no other place in the solar system that you can observe a total solar eclipse. There's other planets that you might be able to see part of it, but you can't stand on it. This is the only planet that you can stand on that you can observe a total solar eclipse. God designed the earth special. He really did. And so that syzygy is what we're going to talk about today, the sun, the moon, and the earth. Now, I'm going to go fast. I'm going to give you information about why it shows a young universe, why it shows that the Lord created it so we can live here, and why the Lord created it so that we could explore it. That's an important one. Just because God creates something where we can live in it doesn't mean that we have to be able to explore it. Sometimes those two don't match up, and yet they do here on earth. We are in a specific spot where we can actually explore the universe that God has given us. We can actually explore the earth that God has given us, and that's an amazing thing. So I'm going to go fast, so I want to make sure you don't walk away without understanding this. God has given us a personally designed and created world just for us. His loving design not only allows us to live here, but to thrive here. I want to make sure you understand. When I say live, I don't mean survive, I mean thrive. You understand that? To live doesn't mean to survive, but to thrive. Further, it's because he's made it explorable that we can discover and learn not only about our created home, but about the Creator himself. All the founders of the different disciplines of science, almost every single one of them were God-fearing men. They were wanting to understand the earth that God had given them. In fact, Kepler said, Johannes Kepler, we have a book about him at the book table. He said, when I do science, it's like thinking God's thoughts after him. So we can actually learn about our created home, but also learn about our Creator as well. So let's start with the earth. When we talk about the earth, Psalm 24, 1 and 2 says this, the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein, for he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Isn't that interesting? Conventional scientists want to know where all the water came from. They think that meteorites and things have just been hitting the earth and have brought little droplets of water. And just over billions of years, they just keep hitting and water falls off of it. And then eventually, we become 2/3 covered in water? 2/3 of our earth is covered in water right now. Of course, in the beginning, in Genesis, what does it say? It says that it was completely covered with water and the Spirit was hovering over the waters. The water has always been here. On day 4, when it says the earth starts to show, the actual land starts to come up and show. Do you realize that we have deep trenches in the ocean? We have deep underground caverns full of water. There's one in Arkansas. They've never found the actual depth of the water. It's that deep. The water was here in the beginning. It's still here today. If you level all the land off, the entire world would be covered with water. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact. No question about it. If you leveled the earth off, the entire world would be covered with water. It's never gone anywhere. It's always here. So that's how he founded the earth. Let's talk about the earth for just a second. So does the earth actually show evidence of a young universe? I think you'll find that it does. Now, when we talk about Star Trek, does anybody know the name of the main ship? What's the name of the main ship? That's right, the USS Enterprise. Now, the USS Enterprise, I mean, it's got all of its guns and phasers and all, all that kind of stuff. But there was a defensive capability that the Enterprise had that I loved. I thought it was so cool. I wanted this too. What is it? They had shields. They would say, shields up, right? Red alert, shields up. And so the USS Enterprise had these shields. And I used to love watching Star Trek because the phasers would hit the shields and would have this cool color and stuff. This is from one of the newer Star Treks. Take a look at this.
Phasers, minimum capacity.
Charging. They're locking phases again, Captain.
Fire.
Apologies, Captain. I was trying to graze them, but they fired and changed course right into our weapons.
I think they got the hint.
That would be my first day in the job. Say, just give them a warning shot. Cut them right in half. that would be retirement party for Dave. Okay. But but that blue, beautiful color when the lasers hit the Enterprise, I used to love that. They have this amazing shield, but you know what? God has given us a shield. Now, he's given us a shield of faith, but even more physically, he's given the earth a shield. So our shield comes from our core. So the core is actually in two parts. There's a hard inner core and a liquid outer core. And within that core, there's iron and nickel roaming around, flowing through that. And as it flows through that, it actually creates an electromagnetic field around the earth. This is what I'm talking about. So it creates this electromagnetic field around the earth. It also gives us the south and north pole as well. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's a little fun fact for you, a little earth fact. So the earth's magnetic field decays by approximately 5% every century. So as we move forward into the future, every century, this magnetic field that's around us actually decays by 5%. Now, that seems like a random fact, doesn't it? But if we're talking about the origins of the universe, that can become very important. Because if we say that as we move forward into the future, every century it decays by 5%, that means that if we go back in time, every century it increases or gets stronger by 5%. Here's the problem. Eventually, that electromagnetic field destroys the earth. It will become so strong that it will tear the earth apart. So you've got to figure out, how long can we go back? How far can we go back? Because evolutionary time frame says 4.5 billion years. What do we say? We say the Bible says around 6,000 years. So can we go back 4.5 billion years, or is it closer to 6? Well, they've actually done studies, and check this out. So the Earth's shield decays by 5% every century. But if we go back into the past, it's going to increase and will eventually tear the earth apart. I have to say that in order to get to my next slide. So the Earth's shield would actually get stronger and stronger and stronger. So how far can we go back? 4.5 billion years or closer to 6,000 years? Pretty sure you're going to guess closer to 6,000 years, because I wouldn't bring it up unless that was true. It's a maximum of 10,000 years. A maximum. You can't go back farther than 10,000 years before the earth destroys itself. That's pretty good evidence of a young universe, isn't it? It doesn't stop there. The magnetic field of other planets has actually been postulated. So this is Dr. Russ Humphreys. He's our physicist. He was a physicist. He worked for us. He actually made a prediction on the strength of the magnetic field of two planets. Those two planets were Neptune and Uranus. Now, of course, we didn't know it at the time. Weren't able to prove him right or wrong. But here's the significant part. He estimated the magnetic fields based off of 6,000 years, not 4.5 billion years. But when we actually sent Voyager 2 out there, We actually measured it, and guess what? He was right. He did it based off 6,000 years. This isn't just poking holes in evolution. This is taking our worldview, what we believe, and making predictions and testing that prediction, and we were right. That's excellent evidence of a young universe. So, is the earth specially designed to make this creation livable for us? Absolutely. And I'm going to give you an example that you can look at every time, see the beauty, and know that God's protecting you. You see, we have this magnetic field because it's protecting us from the sun. Now, the sun gives us heat, it gives us energy, it gives us light, all this stuff that we need. We've got to have it. But at the same time, it actually sends solar wind and solar flares out at us. Now, when I say solar wind, you're thinking, right? Solar wind. Let me say this. Solar wind is actually charged particles, protons and neutrons, that are being shot out of the sun at the earth. Can anybody here, maybe you know this, can you run over 5 miles an hour? Anybody know that they can run over 5 miles an hour? A few of you think, okay, all right. Anybody over 17 miles an hour? I've seen one person who runs over 17 miles an hour. All right, everybody go out in the lobby. We're going to test this. No, I'm just kidding. So these particles are flying at the earth at 250 to 500 miles per second. Is that fast? Yeah, that's fast. And it will tear us apart. It will destroy us. And so God has given us this field, this magnetic field, to protect us from the sun that we need. Isn't that amazing? You think about it. How would we know that that's true? Have you ever seen the aurora borealis? That's in the north and the south of Australis. The aurora borealis is a light display that happens when those charged particles hit our electromagnetic field and the atmosphere. When God protects us from those particles, it shows these lights. So every time we look at it, we can say, that is beautiful. But at the same time, I want you, every time now that you look at the auroras, I want you to know that God is protecting you every second of the day. That is a physical reminder of his protection. Isn't that awesome? That God designs it so we're protected, and he designs it so we can see the beauty as well. It's awesome. What about this? How is the earth designed to help us explore God's creation? Well, if we go back to that electromagnetic field, I told you that you got the poles, right? You have the south magnetic pole, the north magnetic pole. Now, here's where it gets a little confusing, okay? So basically, when I say that we can explore because of those poles, what I'm talking about is a compass. Now, if you're like me, I've got a big compass here. I bought this. It's kind of like a tricorder from Star Trek. Beam me up, Scotty. Okay, but that's not what it is. If you were like me, when I was a little kid, I never used a compass, but I'd pick one up and I'd just turn like this, just to see where it would go, right? But people actually explore in the Grand Canyon, in places where there's not GPS. Even still today, they use compasses, especially in you'll find them in higher end hiking stores like REI and places like this. But prior to that, there was no GPS. Prior to GPS, this is what we had, right? Now, here's the fun part. It gets a little confusing, but see if you can keep up with me. When you look at the south magnetic pole, you're actually looking at the geographic North Pole, okay? That's a little confusing. Here's a fun little fact. It says each pole has a magnetic pole and an opposite geographic pole. So if you have the south magnetic pole here, you've got the south geographic pole down here. North magnetic pole here, north geographic pole here. They're opposites. Now, I didn't create this. Don't look at me. But when you take a look at that, you can actually see the opposites, so that when we use a compass, we actually are looking for the south magnetic pole, because the compass has a north magnetic tip. And so what do we say? Opposites attract, right? Okay? And so the north goes to the south magnetic pole, but the south magnetic pole is the north geographic pole. So every time you're using a compass to find the north, it's actually pointing to the south magnetic pole. That's what it's doing. That's interesting. Can you imagine having to be the one that figured that out? I am definitely not smart enough to do that. So these compasses are great for us. They've actually shown us the way as we explore. There's even stories about the people who originally explored the Grand Canyon using compasses. Nowadays, what do we have? We have, like Google Maps, right? We don't have to worry about that. We've got GPS satellites all over space, and we use, clearly you don't really want to use Google Maps. If you have the right phone, you're going to use the Apple Maps. That's what you really want to use. Okay, I've just lost half the audience. I apologize for that. But so the earth actually helps us to explore it. And just in summary, when you think about it, the earth shows signs that it is a recently designed creation. It shows that it is designed to be livable. God's protection is visually seen, that he is protecting us on a daily basis. And it is designed to be explored. He gave us those poles so that we could calculate where we were and which way we needed to go. God is good. He is amazing. He gives us this design. He gives us the ability to explore, but he makes it beautiful. He wants us not to just survive. He wants us to thrive. So if we move away from the earth and we go to the moon, there's a few lunar facts that we can give you here. Let's see here. Lunar facts. The first one is, it's the lesser light. Here's something fun. You probably know this. It's the lesser light. It's called the lesser light to govern the night. But it's actually not a light. Isn't that interesting? The moon actually doesn't have a light. It doesn't glow like the sun. It actually just reflects the light from the sun. And so, of course, that's why you have a lot of pastors who will say, hey, we need to reflect the sun, S-O-N, the same way the moon reflects the sun, S-U-N. And that's true, we should. We should be doing that. Glorifying the Lord, letting people see God in us is exactly what we should be doing. But it is a lesser light. What else? Let's see here. It is single-sided. So in other words, as we orbit, we go flying at thousands of miles through space. You realize you're hurtling through space right now. It is, if you could see how fast you're going, you would throw up. All right? But you're flying through space, orbiting the sun. At the same time, you're spinning. You remember those teacups that you would sit in and turn, and then it would spin you around, and then you're spinning the teacup? And yeah, I threw up one time in those. But so that's basically what's happening. You're hurtling through space, orbiting the sun, and then you're spinning, and then the moon is spinning around the earth, right? But the interesting thing is that the moon is in perfect synchronization. It always shows us the same side. We've never seen the other side of the moon. That's why it's called the dark side of the moon. And the Apollo astronauts have gone around it. They've gone around it. We actually lose touch with the astronauts when they go to the other side of the moon. What was it? Apollo 13 actually slingshotted themselves using the orbit, slingshotted around the moon to come back to Earth because they were having problems. So it's a single-sided moon. And the last one is that there's lunar phases. We have animals that use the lunar phases. So you've seen, we always talk about the man in the moon. And there's like a full moon, a half moon, a quarter moon. There's a little crescent moon. These are lunar phases. All that is that as the earth and moon are rotating around the sun is hitting the moon at different angles, and it creates that quarter, half, full moon. And it's just, we call it lunar phases, and there's actually animals. We have crabs on Christmas Island that, based off the lunar phases, know when to go over to the ocean and lay their eggs so that the high tide will come and take the eggs out so they won't be eaten on land. They use the lunar phases. So the moon is very integral to our life. But is there other evidence of a young universe based off the moon? Absolutely, yes. I'll give you just one, just for time's sake. Transient lunar phenomenon. We call it TLPs. I know you guys talk about this at parties a lot. Yeah. Have y'all seen the transient lunar phenomenon? Yeah. So the idea is this: if you watch the moon, you see these little light flashes. These little flashes. Now, NASA doesn't watch the moon much anymore, but people do, and they record these transient lunar phenomenon. What you're watching is actual geological activity of the moon. Volcanic activity, dust clouds, actual bright flashes, things like this. As a matter of fact, when Apollo was going to the moon, they actually found evidence that it was geologically active. Why is that important? Because the evolutionary time frame says that the moon's 4.5 billion years old. There is no way the moon could be geologically active if it was 4.5 billion years old. If we didn't know about these TLPs, we wouldn't have much evidence of that. But since we know that it's geologically active, we know that there's no way that it's 4.5 billion years old. It flies in the face of evolutionary time frame. What about this? Is the moon specially designed to make this creation livable for us? Well, it actually is. The moon actually uses gravity to help us. So there's a gravitational pull from the moon, like pulling a rope. It actually pulls and bulges the water. This is where we get the waves in the ocean. Now, there's also wind and currents and stuff that help us get a little bit of waves, but we actually get better waves because of the gravitational pull of the moon. So it bulges the water on the side that it's on, and because of centrifugal force, remember you're orbiting, you're spinning and orbiting at the same time, centrifugal force actually causes it to bulge on the opposite side as well. And so that's where you get high tide and low tide. And that's where you get all these waves coming in. And what that's doing is it's churning up the water. You have to churn up the water so you can keep things alive. We all know what happens if you just leave a pond stagnant. It grows algae, it gets gross. You throw your brother in it, it's bad, okay? Some of you actually laughed a little bit too good at that. I feel like maybe that actually happened, but yeah. So now the gravitational pull of the moon is one thing, but remember we talked about that syzygy when all three line up. When all three line up and the sun starts pulling, using its gravitational pull added to the moon's gravitational pull, that's where we get extreme high tides. And that's why the crabs will come at high tide so that the eggs are washed out to the ocean to survive and then come back in when they're grown a little bit. So when you have that syzygy, it actually increases the actual pull or the tide on the earth. Now, when we talk about the earth and the moon is giving us those waves because we love the ocean. I mean, I don't know many people that don't love the ocean. Now, I'm actually terribly scared of water. I'm not going to lie to you. But I love the ocean. I can go out and into the waves and stuff and still be happy. Kids love diving under the waves and stuff because they're crazy. We love bringing our kids to the ocean and taking pictures. This is our vacation spot. We've made sports out of the ocean. The big waves and Pastor at Corpus Christi, Rod Carver, used to be a surfer, and he was a judge at one point when he gave his life to Christ, and he turned from all that stuff. So we make sports out of it. They say that the worst day on the beach is better than the best day anywhere else. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the moon is integral to the ocean, and the ocean gives us some amazing things. First of all, the ocean gives us over 50% of the oxygen that we breathe because we have phytoplankton that's floating in the ocean. And those waves actually turn them around, get them over, and spread them out so that we can have oxygen everywhere. Over 50% of our oxygen comes from the ocean. What about seafood? Anybody like seafood here? Yeah. If I was what I ate, yeah. So I love shrimp. I like it fried. I like it boiled. I like it in pasta. I really love shrimp, okay? And I like other seafood too. But because of the moon, those tides are really coming in. It creates an ecosystem that is thriving. If you didn't have the moon, you would still have some waves because of the currents and because of the wind, but it would destroy that thriving ecosystem that we have. And the same thing with the weather. It actually it actually is churning up those waters. It's actually moving the warm water around, and so it actually acts on our weather systems and our weather patterns. So the moon is very integral to the ocean, which is important to us. But here's something else. Let's take a look at one more lunar fact here. This lunar fact is that the moon's gravitational pull helps stabilize the tilt of our axis. So actually, when we're flying around the sun and we're spinning, okay, you're actually tilted, all right? It gets worse and worse. You really are going to throw up at some point. It's tilted about 23.5 degrees, somewhere in there, and it can change a little bit, comes in patterns. But the moon's gravitational pull actually holds us at that angle. The problem is, if we were not being held at that angle, you think our weather's bad now, you would have massive extremes coming through. From the sun and dryness, you've got tornadoes, and then you've got like rain and tsunamis and things like this. All these things would be happening. There would be massive swings back and forth because we wouldn't have a stable tilt. Because of that tilt, we have a more stable pattern of weather. I know some of you are like, you didn't see the tornado I just saw, but it's a more stable pattern. And it is because of the moon. The moon actually makes the earth livable. What about this? How is the moon designed to help us explore God's creation? Well, that one's pretty easy. It's actually called astronavigation. So before GPS, if you were on water, what did you have at night? You're on a ship. What did you have? You had the sun, the moon, and the stars. That's all you had. If you're out in the middle of the ocean, you can't see any land. How are you going to tell where you are? It was through astronavigation. They would actually chart where the constellations were, right? You've got Polaris and you've got Orion's belt and all these things. They knew where those are. So based on where they should be and where they are, they knew where they were and where they were supposed to go. Based off the moon and the position of the moon and the lunar phase of the moon, they knew where they are and where they needed to go. Like I said, we have GPS now, but God had to build in a way for us to explore this earth prior to all this technology. God not only designed the earth and the moon to be perfect for us to live in, he designed it so that we could explore it as well. So the moon itself actually shows signs that is a recently designed creation because of those TLPs, you know, that party conversation that you always have, right? And it actually shows it's designed to be livable. It actually helps control the tilt. It actually helps get us a better ecosystem in the ocean, all kinds of stuff. There's even more we can go into, but we just don't have time. And it actually shows design to be explored as well. So let's hit the sun real quick. I know I'm going to run a little bit long. I'm trying really hard, but there's just so many cool things. If we talk about the sun in Psalm 19:4 and 6, it says, "Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Its rising is from one end of the heaven, and its circuit to the other end, and there is nothing hidden from its heat." So let's talk about some solar facts real quick. If we talk about solar facts, first one is going to be nuclear fusion, because that's what gives us the light and the heat from the sun. So it's actually hydrogen protons that are being fused together. It takes about 3 to 4 of them to be fused together into helium, okay? The helium is what gives us the light, because when the helium is created, there's gamma rays, there's actually neutrons that are let off. It gives us that light, and it also gives that heat. It is a nuclear reactor, okay? The sun is a nuclear reactor, basically, and it's really scary. We're very glad to be this far away from it, okay? Nuclear fusion. What about photosynthesis? If the sun wasn't here, we would have no oxygen. Because of photosynthesis, we have it. God created this amazing thing called green plants. created flowers and trees, and all these things use photosynthesis to get the energy that they need. They actually draw in the sunlight. They take in carbon dioxide, CO2. Where do they get CO2 from? We breathe it out. We get it from other things too, but we breathe it out. They take in the carbon dioxide and the water. They use the process of photosynthesis and get two products. Number one, oxygen. Hey, what do we breathe? Oxygen. Isn't that amazing? And then they produce sugar, which actually helps them to grow and build. Isn't it amazing that God has built an earth where the very thing we breathe out, the plants need to breathe in, and the very thing they breathe out, we need to breathe in? Is that another cosmic coincidence? Is that what you believe? No, I didn't think so. I just want to make sure. God is amazing because let me tell you something. When you look out over these grassy fields and these forests, we can look at them and just go, oh, man, that is so beautiful. But from now on, I want you to look out at that and say, that is a massive oxygen-producing factory that God has made beautiful. It's a massive oxygen-creating factory, and it is absolutely beautiful. God is so good. There's always levels to God. What about the ultimate draw? Without the sun, we wouldn't be here. Because the sun, we're talking about the solar system, we all rotate around the sun, right? It's because the sun draws us in and helps lock in that orbit. So it does that for each planet. It's because of the gravitational pull of the sun. And so it is the ultimate draw. If it wasn't here, we wouldn't be here, okay? So what about this? Does the sun show evidence of a young universe? Well, it does, and it's something that we call the faint sun paradox. Because what conventional science says is that helium builds up. As the helium builds up, the sun gets brighter. And so the theory is, according to conventional scientists, that 40 years ago, when the universe started, you had the origin of the universe, the sun would have been 40% dimmer. In other words, over time, the sun has increased in actual light, the brightness. Well, the problem is that we understand today that if we have just a small fluctuation in the light that's given out and the heat that's given out, we have big problems. And just small fluctuations. If it was 40% dimmer, you wouldn't be able to handle it. We couldn't have the earth. And so what conventional scientists will say, well, maybe there's greenhouse gases that was protecting the earth, and then as the sun got brighter, the greenhouse gases got less. Now, you got to have a lot of faith to believe that. I'm sorry. I just don't have enough faith to believe that somehow that just synchronized through blind, pitiless indifference. That you've got to have design in order to do that. And so the faint sun paradox is actually good evidence that we have a new creation, that it is not billions of years old. So how is the sun designed to help us explore God's creation? Well, first of all, the sun actually holds us. God has designed the sun to hold us in this specific orbit, and we call it the Goldilocks zone. And the Goldilocks zone is this. That's what everybody's looking for throughout the universe. We want to find another Earth-like planet. That's what everybody wants to find because they figure, the answer is not going to be God. That means it's got to be random, and that means it has to have been able to happen somewhere else. And so we just need to find that somewhere else to be able to prove that we don't need God. The problem is we've never actually found one of those planets. We found planets that we think might be, but there's no way for us to prove it. So the truth is, we're in the Goldilocks zone. If you were any closer, you'd be here in Venus. The temperature there is over 800 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Don't worry, it's a dry heat, so it's okay. Now, if you go any further out, if you've been to Houston, that does matter, actually. If you go further out, you're in Mercury, their winters get to negative 195 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 195. I was in Illinois not too long ago. It was negative 14. I thought I was going to die, okay? I don't want anything to do with 195 below zero. The average temperature, however, on Mercury is 80 degrees below zero, okay? So we are in this perfect spot where we're not too cold, where we have lakes, liquid lakes, and we're not too hot, where it doesn't evaporate all the water on Earth. We're in this Goldilocks zone. You know what would happen if we didn't have the sun? Let me just visually tell you. You get it? There'd be nothing. Now, if you think about it, there might be a little bit of light from the stars. So I'll give you a little bit of light from the stars. There you go. Can you see that? See, the problem is without the sun, there'd be no solar system. Without the solar system and without the sun, there'd be no light for us to see anything. Without the light from the sun, there's no heat. We would be stone cold dead. There'd be no plant life because no photosynthesis. There'd be no oxygen because there'd be no plant life. With no oxygen, there would be no us. Pretty simple way of explaining that, I think. So that's why the sun is amazing. How is the sun designed to help us explore God's creation? Just as easy. It's here. It gives us light and heat so that we can explore underwater. We can go through forests, climb mountains. There may be snow up on those mountains, but there's mountains that we can explore. It gives us the ability to move around this planet. It is so integral to our life. Now, I know that I'm running just a little bit over time, but I want to give you something really cool. Not only have we learned things from the sun, have we learned things from the moon and from the earth, just understanding God's creation and understanding God's protection and his design and his beauty. When we look at that syzygy, that total solar eclipse, we've learned from that as well. Because when the moon totally blocks out the sun, we can actually see past the sun. We can actually see the outer atmosphere of the sun. So when it's actually not blocked, we can't see past the sun because that light is so bright. But when that moon blocks it, we've actually learned several different things. I'll give you just 3 examples. When we talk about total solar eclipses, we have learned several things. The first one was in 1868, Pierre Jensen, during a total solar eclipse, he went over into India. He actually discovered an element that we didn't know about. When they look out into space, the way they recognize elements is by the color. Each element is a different color. When he looked out at that total solar eclipse, he saw a yellow line and said, wait a second, we've never seen this yellow line before. What is that? Well, guess what? He got to name it. He named it after the heliosphere. He named it helium. Isn't that interesting? You know helium because of God's majesty and these total solar eclipses. What about this one, the moon? We can actually tell you exactly when the total solar eclipse is going to happen. I can tell you exactly where the moon's going to be down to the second. Why? Because we have tracked the orbit and understood the size of the moon because of total solar eclipses. Because it sits there right in front of the sun, and we're like, there it is right there. And then we know that orbit. And so we can actually predict it down to the second. And that is because of that syzygy, that total solar eclipse. And then lastly, the theory of relativity. Sir Arthur Eddington verified relativity, clearly a word I cannot say, during May 1919 eclipse. So as we track stars, we know where stars should be at any given moment, right? Because as we orbit, we know where they're going to be. During the total solar eclipse, he saw these stars. Now, what is the theory of relativity? It basically says that any large body in space will actually, because of the gravity of it, each large body has gravity. Because of that gravity, it will bend light. It will actually bend light to itself. And so nobody had ever given any good evidence of that, but it was a theory. Until this total solar eclipse, he knew exactly where the stars were supposed to be, and they were shifted. So he understood that that gravitational pull had actually shifted the light that was coming to us. And there was actually evidence of the theory of relativity. So we have learned a lot of things from the syzygy, from the total solar eclipse. Isn't it amazing that God's beauty is awe-inspiring? all the things that he's given us. We don't just live, we don't just survive. We thrive because of the design of God's home that he's given us. And God's beauty isn't just awe-inspiring. The truth is God's provision is faith-building. When you look at the aurora borealis, you can know that God is protecting you every second of the day. When you see a field of flowers and plants and trees, you can know that God has provided massive oxygen-producing factories just for you, and they're beautiful as well. His provision is faith-building. Just like I told you before, everything works together. It's all integrated. You can't really separate it. And it's that integration that tells us that this is not an accident. You can take one thing that I said and go, well, maybe it's by chance. But when you take all these things together, there is no way that you can say it's by chance. God has given us a personally designed and created world just for us. His loving design not only allows us to live here, but to thrive here. And further, it's because he has made it explorable that we can discover and learn not only about our created home, but the Creator himself. And you can see now that day unto day utters speech. His creation speaks to us during the day and at night. And there's no language barrier that will stop it. The creation speaks. We are without excuse. You know, Romans 1, I'll close with this. I promise, okay? It says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. He says, because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but become futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds, and four-footed animals, and creeping things. That's exactly what has happened to us over the last century, is that we've taken the glory and power and honor belongs to God. It belongs to the creator of the universe, to Jesus as our creator, savior, and coming king. They've taken all that and they've given it to the creation. They said, we don't need God. We're going to give nature the genius. We're going to give nature the ability to choose. Nature selects. Nature designs. And that's exactly what this verse says that they would do, and they have. We need to come back and give the glory to God. God, I told you before, if God isn't your Savior, he can't be your coming King. If you're here today and he's not your Savior, it means when he comes back, you're not going to be saved with everybody else. Because God cannot have sin in his presence. It's not personal. He cannot have sin in his presence, otherwise he wouldn't be who he says he is. And if you don't go to heaven with him, there's only one other place you can go, and that's hell. And that's not a place he wants you to go. It says he doesn't want anyone to go to hell. But it's a very real place, and we're not promised tomorrow. But God has done everything. He's given you everything you need, and it all started when he gave you this home to live in and to explore. I'm going to end with prayer in just 2 seconds. Just real quick, if you would like more information on eclipses, you can check out our book. We have a book that we wrote about the April 8th eclipse. It tells you how to view it safely, talks about why eclipses are important. You can actually check that out at the table back there. Everything burns up in the sun, don't worry, all right? You can take a look at the DVD set on the universe. This is something we produce. It's a TV quality production for DVD set. You definitely would love that. If you weren't planning on buying anything today, but man, you kind of think, I would kind of like to get some more information on this creation thing. We would love for you to do that. There's 3 different books. The one in the middle is the one that answers the most questions. It's the cheapest one based off all the answers you get. It's $10, and it answers more questions than any other resource that we have. But it is a reader's book. I mean, there's like no pictures, so I struggle. Anyway, this is the one I like because it's the Guide to Creation Basics. It was really designed for junior high and high school people like me. And it has a lot of pictures, real succinct answers. It's actually a great resource. And then we also have our Q&A books, Creation Q&A 1 and 2, that you can check out as well. And then, of course, don't forget, check out ICR.org for the Great American Solar Eclipse. You can sign up for that as soon as you get home, okay? We'd love to see you there. Let's pray. Father, we just come before you. We thank you, Lord, that you have given us such a beautiful and beautifully designed world, that when we look around it, your creation screams out of your glory and your majesty. Father, would you help us to understand that? Would you allow us to be emboldened because of it? And would you give us the ability to reach others because of it? We just thank you so much for everything you've done and everything you're doing. We pray that you make us who you want us to be and allow us to serve you the rest of our lives. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.